Welcome to Innershift. Most of us live within a series of decisions that we didn't actually make. The careers we choose and the beliefs we hold often originate from societal conditioning rather than the deepest parts of who we are. This disconnect is maintained by a psychological phenomenon called the spotlight effect. It is the persistent, exhausting sensation that our every action is being observed and evaluated by the world around us. This diagram illustrates the internal experience of this bias. The central node perceives a web of intense, direct sightlines from everyone else. We assume the network is constantly keeping score of our flaws, forcing us to remain hypervigilant. Pulling back the camera reveals the reality of the situation. Every person is trapped within their own individual spotlight. They aren't monitoring your performance. They're occupied by the fear that you are monitoring theirs. To protect ourselves from this imaginary audience, the ego builds a fortress. We construct a mask of competence and perfection to ensure that the judgment we fear never finds a target. These ego walls successfully block out the risk of disappointment. However, they simultaneously isolate us from the vulnerability required for authentic happiness and connection. The ego presents itself as our permanent identity, but it functions as a temporary framework built by the mind. Deconstructing this framework is the first step toward reclaiming our true nature. Buddhist practice identifies that suffering stems from the mind's tendency to tighten around a rigid story of the self. We manufacture pain by continuously clinging to how we think things should be. Stoicism offers a complementary tool, the discipline of control. It requires us to separate our internal judgments and choices from external outcomes that we have no power to influence. This model shows these philosophies working in tandem. One releases the internal grip on emotional reactivity, while the other clarifies our external action. Together, they stop the cycle of mental defense. This process allows us to feel emotions without being dictated by them. We learn to observe the movement of the mind without feeling the need to obey its every impulse. Redirecting the energy used to maintain a false identity provides the mental clarity required to begin the work of self-discovery. The walls we build to protect the ego have a significant cost. In our attempt to lock out what society finds unacceptable, we exile our greatest unlived potential. Carl Jung observed that the unconscious contains more than just repressed darkness. It holds the golden shadow, the powerful positive traits we disowned because they didn't fit the roles we were told to play. We often find it safer to project these traits onto others. Because we feel we cannot embody strength, creativity, or brilliance ourselves, we exile those energies into the unconscious. This diagram shows the mechanism of projection. We take our own light and use it to illuminate and idolize heroes, gurus, and celebrities, leaving ourselves in the dark. The specific traits you admire in others provide a clear signal for your own dormant potential. Reclaiming this energy requires recognizing that your admiration for others is a reflection of the qualities you are meant to develop in yourself. Integrating the shadow is the courageous act of finally reclaiming the greatness you abandoned just to fit in. It is a return to wholeness rather than the creation of someone new. The top regret of the dying is the realization that they lived the life expected of them rather than a life true to themselves. The mask they wore became the only life they ever knew. Breaking this script requires a shift in perspective. Your fears, labels, and ego-driven desires are temporary weather. The true self is the permanent sky. Social masks and the fear of judgment are merely passing clouds. You are the observer watching them dissolve, not the storm itself. This realization collapses the illusion of the isolated self. You find that you are part of a vast, interconnected field of consciousness, rather than a fragment moving through a hostile world. Stepping into this unknown space requires surrendering the need for a rigid identity. Growth happens when we stop resisting the mysteries within us. Life begins when these illusions are dismantled, revealing the authentic self that has always been present beneath the noise.